Mother's Day Sunday services are, flowery, and we talk about how great moms are and how sweet they are and how important they are and how much we love them. And we encourage them, and it's just wonderful. And then on Father's Day, we tell them how bad they are, how much they need to step up to the plate, and how much they need to be present more. And we kind of smack them around a little bit, and we kind of beat them up. You ever notice that? It's true. You know what the lowest attended Sunday of the year is? Father's Day. It is. Lower than Labor Day, lower than Memorial Day. Father's Day is the lowest attended service of the year. I wonder why when they come and we beat them up. It's interesting, the contrast between Mother's Day and Father's Day. Both so important to the life of a family, to the development of a child. Well, we're going to take the next number of weeks, whatever that is, I think 6 weeks between Mother's Day and Father's Day, and we're going to talk about family. And we're going to look at the whole family picture. We're going to look at moms, we're going to look at dads. Today we're going to talk about heritage. On Father's Day we're going to talk about legacy and everything in between. So that's the next few weeks. I want to be an encouragement to mothers and fathers, and I'm looking forward to Father's Day too. But it's interesting, the comparisons that we have between mothers and fathers, and this how we kind of view the relationship between the two, and how we way we talk to one another. But I hate flip-flops. I hate flip-flops. I got feet issues. I don't like. You might get kicked if you touch my feet. I just don't like feet. We get in bed and Becky will put her feet on me, and I just don't. She gets kicked. Just get your feet off me. I don't like feet. I call flip-flops feet thongs. They go between my toes and they just drive me nuts. I hate them. I just can't stand them. And I hate the sound of them. That slap, 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 slap. We're walking through a grocery store and Becky's feet are just slap, 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 slap. We'll walk around the mall, it's just slap, slap. We'll go on vacation, it's slap, 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 slap. Just flip-flops, I just don't like flip-flops. Now I know next Sunday everybody's going to be wearing flip-flops. Just to drive me nuts. I still have gum in my office because I said I like gum. The flip-flops just drive me nuts. There's one thing I like about flip-flops. It's what it means. Flip-flops typically means that you're casual, that it's warm, that it's comfortable, you're relaxed, you're enjoying your day. So while I hate the sound of flip-flops, I like what they mean. I like the insinuation of them. I like hey, we're just kind of comfortable, we're kind of relaxed, we're kind of just enjoying life and enjoying the day, and it's just a relaxing sort of day. Well, as we look at the family and as we look at what it means to be parents and what it means to invest in our children, I like the idea of flip-flops. So the series is titled Faith, Family, and Flip-Flops. Going back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, when we talk about what we are supposed to do, how as parents we are supposed to instruct our children, and the intentionality that we as parents are supposed to have. And it says, as you walk along, as you go through your day, as you flip-flop, as you walk through life, we're supposed to be teaching our children. We're supposed to be investing in our children. We're supposed to talk to them about faith matters in all aspects of life. As we look at our life, I think all of us, today is Mother's Day, obviously. I've already mentioned that. Hopefully you've all remembered that. Hopefully you've already wished your mother a happy Mother's Day. But heritage is so much bigger than just mothers. As I look at heritage, I think, and maybe I'm splitting hairs, and this is just kind of the way my mind thinks. I think of heritage as kind of looking back. It's looking back at what we've been given and what we've inherited. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And as we look at Father's Day, we're going to look at legacy. And legacy is about what I'm leaving, is what I'm developing in other people. So I inherit heritage. I have that is outside of me, that I don't have any control over, that I've been given this. Legacy is what I'm leaving, is what I'm giving to people who come after me. That's kind of how I'm looking at this and how I view heritage versus legacy. And we look at heritage, and all of us have a spiritual heritage. Mothers invest so much of us, and they really develop our spiritual character. Fathers really give us a view of God and how we interpret God and how we view Him, the way He interacts with us, how He treats us. We tend to assign that to God through our fathers. Mothers, we really kind of shape our theology and the practical theology of our life. And we have this spiritual heritage in our life, and maybe you're here today and you don't have parents who were godly parents who invested in you spiritually, or maybe they have given you a distorted view of God. And let's be honest, we're all a little broken and we're all a little off, and we've all passed on a distorted view of God, and we all kind of mess up along the way. We all do. But we all have this heritage that you are sitting here because somebody has invested in you. Because somebody has left you a heritage, spiritually speaking, that has created a passion and a desire in you, at least maybe even a curiosity about who God is, and you want something to do with Him, and you want a relationship with Him, at least on some level. And that may not have been your mom, it may not have been your dad, but it's somebody in your past that you can look back to and you can point to and you can say, I know that person. Maybe it was a Sunday school teacher. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe it was an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or somebody that you can look back and say, it wasn't my mom, it wasn't my dad, but it was these people who gave me this spiritual heritage that now I want to pass on as a legacy to whoever comes after me. I go back to that. I'm so thankful for my heritage. And our son-in-law told me one time, he says, you have no idea how lucky you are for the heritage that you have. He said, you are rare in your heritage. Because I can go back to my grandparents, and I can't think of anybody in my family, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, cousins, who didn't have a relationship with Jesus. It's crazy to look at my heritage and to see what my grandparents started and what my grandparents did and the legacy that they left, but the heritage that I get to inherit. I go to family reunions and surrounded by believers and surrounded by other pastors and surrounded by people who are involved in ministry. The heritage that I have been given is amazing. And I want to pass that on. I want to leave that as my legacy too. But going back somewhere, sometime that heritage started, because I've told you before, I think, my great-grandparent, my great-grandpa, was a horrible person. Abused my grandpa and his brothers and sisters. My great-grandpa, at one point, chased my grandpa with a buggy whip. My grandpa told a story one time that he was in the barn. My great-grandpa was looking for him. He was in the barn, standing behind the barn door with a board, ready to smack my great-grandpa when he walked through. Thankfully, my great-grandpa turned around and walked away and didn't find him. My grandpa changed the legacy so that I have a heritage of a godly, loving person. My great-great-grandfather, I think it was Grandma Alexander's grandpa, died in the back of a wagon. Died in the back of the wagon, passed out drunk, ripped his femoral artery on a nail in the back of the wagon, drunk, bled to death. Not a great person. But along the way, my great-grandma, great-grandparents changed that. They changed that. Said, I'm not going to be bound by what was. I'm going to change what is. And I'm going to be different. It doesn't matter what I have inherited. I'm going to be different. I'm going to leave a different legacy for myself. Now, I am the beneficiary of that I have a heritage of godly people. That I can look back on, I think, man, what has God saved me from and what God has given me? I can't rest on my laurels. I can't just say, well, I've inherited that, great, and my kids are going to be fine because it's like a cold that we pass on. Well, I got it, they're going to get it. No. I have to be certain of my faith. I have to be certain of my standing in relationship with Jesus to give the best opportunity and the best chance for my children so that they can inherit and they can pass on, so they can look back at me. They may never know me, but they can look back and say, I know, I've heard stories of my great-great-grandfather who was a godly man, that because of him I now have my life. We have these that no matter what your family is, no matter what your heritage is, you can change that today. And you can be different. No matter the mistakes you've made as a parent, you can change that today. You may not have any kids. You can mentor. You can be a spiritual parent, a spiritual grandparent to neighborhood kids, to kids here in church. There is this amazing story in 2 Timothy. In 2 Timothy, this is Paul's last letter. Paul knows he's going to die. Paul's in prison. Paul, the handwriting is on the wall. Paul knows his life is going to end. This is the last letter, recorded anyway, that we know of that Paul writes. And he writes to his young friend, he calls him his son in Christ. And he writes this letter. And Paul writes this in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 3 through 7. I'm reading out of the New Living Translation. That's what's on the screen in front of you. But I want to encourage you to get out your Bibles, open your phone apps, even take the Bible out of the chair in front of you, get out your pen. There's one verse in here in particular that we're not going to really talk about it, but it's a great verse. And I want you to underline. Even if it's not your Bible, underline it. All right? 2 Timothy chapter 1, I'm going to read verses 3 through 7. Paul writes here, Timothy, I thank God for you, the God I serve with a clear conscience, just as my ancestors did. Night and day I constantly remember you in my prayers. I long to see you again, for I remember your tears as we parted, and I will be filled with joy when we are together again. I remember your genuine faith, for you share the faith that first filled your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice. And I know that same faith continues strong in you. This is why I remind you to fan into flames the spiritual gift God gave you when I laid my hands on you. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. If you got a pen, that's the verse you need to highlight. You need to underline that verse. That God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power. You afraid of anything? This is all free. This isn't on my notes or anything. You afraid of something? Is fear controlling you? Is fear dictating to you what you do, where you go, what you say, when you do it? God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power. I remember being terrified of being a parent. They don't come with instruction manuals. I mean, they put do not eat on Tide Pods. You would think children would come with instructions. Something, hey, don't drop. But they don't. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, don't fear. If you're afraid, do not be afraid. He has given us a spirit of power, of love, and of self-discipline. You need to underline that verse. You need to memorize that verse. You need to put it on your mirror in the bathroom so you see that in the morning. But Paul is reminding Timothy here of his heritage. Paul uses the word ancestors in verse 3. If you look back at verse 3, Paul uses it. He says, I remember my ancestors. This word is only used twice in the entire New Testament. Paul uses it both times in his first letter to Timothy and his second letter to Timothy. Paul is remembering. It's a word that is a direct ancestry. It's my grandparents or my parents is what it's referring to. So Paul is saying, I remember my heritage. I remember my mom and my dad and my grandparents. I remember the impact that they had on my life, and I remember I can see them in my mind's eye, and I can hear their voice, and I can remember the lessons that they taught me, and what they did is why I am here today. And he says, now Timothy, I want you to remember your mom and your grandma. and what they have done for you. Timothy's the scared young man. He's a young pastor. We don't know how old he is, but we know he's young because of other stuff that Paul says. And we know he's afraid because Paul tells him not to be afraid. So Paul is pointing back and saying, Timothy, remember your grandma and your mom. Remember what they did for you. Remember the strength that they had. I kind of get ticked off today when I hear about strong women. It's like it's a novel idea. Strong women go back thousands of years. And one thing that kind of annoys me today about this culture of strong women is it seems to be, you can't have a strong woman. If you have strong women, you have toxic masculinity. We try and elevate one and we try and bring down the other. It's like we can't have both. We can't have a strong woman and a man's man. If we have a man's man, we have in this mind, our image the Marlboro Man and the John Wayne, and that I'm gonna grab my woman and I'm gonna, you come and you cook and you never see any of that. I mean, we see nothing but respect and honor throughout Scripture of a man and a woman, a husband and a wife. It's co-equal. On our culture today, in our society today, it's like, I'm raising a strong woman. Well, what does that look like? What do you mean you're raising a strong woman? Are you raising a woman to be a jerk? Are you raising her to be opinionated? Well, I raised girls. I didn't raise them to be strong. I raised them to be women. I married a strong woman. Wasn't raised. She's just a woman who's strong. And our children saw the example of what a strong woman looks like. And now they're strong women. It's like, well, what's a strong woman? She walk into the room and slap her husband? I don't know. That's toxic masculinity. Why can't men be men? Why can't we honor our wives and still be a man? Why can't we show respect and we still be a man? We can still open pickle jars. We can still mow the grass. That doesn't mean a woman can't mow the grass. I mean, I don't want Becky to mow the grass, but I can. She doesn't want to, and I got to have straight lines. Doesn't mean she's not a strong woman, but don't get on my mower. Paul is reminding Timothy of the strong women in his life, the strong examples that have shaped him and molded him to the man that he is. And Timothy is scared of the future. He's scared and he's nervous. I'm not sure what's in front of me. And Paul is saying, remember your heritage. Remember these people, and they happen to your mom and your grandma, who have impacted you and have developed into you and have built into you, have left you an example to follow. That if they did it, you can do it. And Paul, with his dying breath, is reminding Timothy of his heritage. Facing an uncertain future. Timothy knows Paul's going to die. Timothy knows he's losing his spiritual father. Timothy knows he's losing his mentor. And Paul is reminding Timothy, you can move on, you can go forward, you can be successful in your spiritual life because of the heritage that you've been given. Move forward confidently, and in verse 7, with power. They were self-disciplined. Timothy, be self-disciplined. They built into you, you build into somebody else. I have built into you, you build into somebody else. This is how it works, church. This is how it goes. You can sit here this morning and you think, well, I know so-and-so that really impacted my life for Christ. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for so-and-so. Who is that person to you? If you have one or two names that pop into your mind, like Paul says, remember your grandma, remember your mom, Lois and Eunice. Remember them, Timothy? Who is yours? Who's your spiritual heritage, your spiritual father, your spiritual mother, grandmother, grandfather? Anybody want to say their name out loud? Who is it? Anybody? Mom, grandma? Anybody have a neighbor? School bus driver? Professor? I'd be a Christian today if it wasn't for a professor, but I doubt I'd be a pastor if it wasn't for a professor that spoke truth into my life. Faye Chekovich. Told you about her before. We have these people that invest in us in powerful and incredible ways. And Paul reminds Timothy of that. And he said, this is your foundation, Timothy. This is what your life has been built on. Continue to add to this. Continue to build on this. Somebody has laid a foundation for your life. Somebody has built into you. Has turned over the keys, has turned over the process to you and said, now you continue. Don't have fear. Fear is not of God. You've been given power. You've had these strong people in your life who've showed you, who've taught you. Now it's up to us. It's up to you. Who in your life? We talk about wanting to honor people. Well, I'm going to do this because they would have done this. We still do stuff at holidays because that's how mom would have done it. And we continue that on to honor people who have gone before us. Are you doing that in your spiritual life? Are you looking at your spiritual life and saying, well, they did this to me, and I don't want to do this to my kids because it's hard, it's uncomfortable. Honor your heritage. Honor your heritage. Remember your Eunice and your Lois. Remember those who have invested into you, or maybe are still investing in you. If you're a Timothy, do you have a Paul? Somebody who's still alive, who's still investing in your life and encouraging you. As parents, grandparents, as mentors, our job is never done. Our responsibilities are never over. It kind of breaks my heart when I have conversations, in particular with elderly people who are facing death. Conversations in nursing homes are some of the hardest I have, because I'm sitting across from people who have lived this incredible life and have left a legacy, and they seem to have lost purpose. Why am I still here? I don't understand what God is doing. I'm ready to die. I want to die. I'm by myself. I'm in this place. And my thought always comes back to this. You still have somebody to invest in. You still have a heritage to inherit and a legacy to pass on. We're never done. As long as we draw breath, we have somebody who is a Timothy in our life that we can be the Paul to, that we can teach, that we can pray for, that we can invest in. So who's your Paul? Who's your Timothy? Are you investing? Are you passing that spiritual heritage on and leaving a legacy? So dads, don't check out. Come back on Father's Day, because I want to talk about legacy. I want to talk about what we're leaving behind as a family, not just as moms and dads, but as a family. What are we leaving behind? What are we passing on? We've inherited this thing. We have to leave it. So as you go to your restaurant today to celebrate Mom, it's kind of funny again. Moms, we go out to eat. Dads, we barbecue. Urgh. Meat. So as you go to your restaurants, think about look around the table. Even if it's just across the table at one other person. Maybe you'll be alone. But you have a heritage to be grateful for, and you have a legacy to pass on. And you're not done. You're not done. We're going to close in prayer. I want you to think again today in a really excited way, in a grateful way. I think I read this, Paul writing, and just has a sense of excitement as he's writing to Timothy, and he's remembering his ancestors. And he reminds Timothy about his ancestors. I think Paul was so encouraged, even as he's facing death. Paul is so encouraged and so excited about the future of Timothy's life. We have a lot to be excited for. We have a lot to look forward to. You have a lot to pass on. Don't quit. Don't stop. Stay in the fight and keep working for the kingdom. We going to stand for this, Joel?
Yeah.
All right.
Stand.
Let's all stand as we close with a song.